Hello, Avalanche from the Muggle world. I'm out here now, but I want you to know I'm keeping up the Slytherin banner just so that you guys remember which house is the best. And if any of you continue to doubt that, remember I always have my one-word response. Merlin, House Slytherin. All right, well, I also realized that before I left, I didn't get to speak to all of you, and there were many questions, I think, that were left unanswered. So I hope you don't mind if I make this short little video, kind of hitting the top line of some of those questions, and then I'll allow some other folks to listen in because I imagine that they have some of the same questions. So with that in mind, I'm now going to hit you with another PowerPoint. Okay, so I know your time is precious, so I made an agenda, just 4 points here. That I think probably hit the main issues. Why did I resign? How did the articles impact that? What do I believe now? And then what's next for me? So let's go ahead and get started and hit that first big one. Why did I resign? Okay, so first I need to acknowledge the logical inference here. I can see how people would make a connection between the timing of the press articles and my decision to resign. I mean, it makes total sense, right? But I also want to assure everybody at the studio that the letter that was read in the all hands meeting is indeed accurate. As a refresher, here's the body of that letter. It reads, "Please accept my resignation from my position with Avalanche and WB Games effective March 12th, 2021. I feel it is important to note that I leave with only the warmest of feelings towards both the Avalanche team and the WB organization. I greatly appreciate all the efforts they have made in supporting my move to Nevada and helping me to work through a difficult situation with my family. Unfortunately, things on that front have seriously deteriorated since the beginning of February of this year. I now see the situation as chronic and likely to be high maintenance into the foreseeable future. I do not believe that I will be able to take care of the family issues in my life while still giving the project the care and attention it deserves. That being said, I will continue to cheerlead Hogwarts Legacy from the sidelines as I wish for it to be gloriously successful. More so, I truly believe that it will be." Now, I know that that part about private family matters is probably enough for most of you, but maybe a quick review of the timeline is in order, of which many of you are already aware. So first, I got some difficult news in January of 2020 before all the COVID stuff began. And then by April, I had told the HR team that I was working towards retirement with the intent to retire in August so that I could move to Nevada and help assist with these family issues. However, as we went through that discussion, the Avalanche team came back and said, well, why don't you just take some time off? And then once you get set up in Southern Nevada, maybe you can come back online and try and see how well you can do while you're dealing with the family issues. So that's why I was gone from the studio and the project from mid-August through mid-October, although I did make it back in time for Halloween. Now, some good things happened in those 2 months too. I sold my condo in Salt Lake City. I got engaged in April and then married in September, which is awesome. Then I packed up, well, my new wife and I, we all packed up and moved down here to Southern Nevada. And then since I've been back in October, the things with the family have been up and down for the past 6 months, but then things took a sharp turn at the beginning of February, and I immediately let the management team know that I was starting to reconsider maybe re-retiring in order to deal with those family issues. That was all before these articles dropped, but that lets you know the position I was in. I also want to make sure that that everybody understands how WB Games has interacted with me, and I want to give them some praise. First of all, they helped me through all this transition down here to Southern Nevada and were very supportive through all that. Also, they really did review my videos back in 2018 when I first joined Avalanche. And at that time, they were clear that they said, well, this does fit within our social media policy, but we don't endorse anything you've said here, which was fine, right? I was comfortable with that. I was just happy that they were willing to allow me to keep my videos up. Also, as part of my disclosure to them, I indicated that I may continue to make videos even while I was employed. And you can see that 2 of the videos in the list actually happened since my time of employment at WB Games. So they stood by their word through all of this. And then even after all the articles dropped, they did not in any way pressure me to retire, not in the least. In fact, they were continuing to be supportive. And I think that's good for you to hear, that I never felt like my job or my position was truly threatened. But in the end, I made the decision to re-retire just like I had planned to last August. And I'm very pleased with that decision because I think it's the right thing to do for me at this point in my life. All right, so let's talk about these press articles and how they figure into the picture. So the first thing that I noticed that I thought was interesting about the situation and maybe a bit concerning is that there was no instigating incident here. I had no accusations of misconduct, no criminal behavior, no HR scandal. I didn't even issue a mean tweet. The articles that were written were concerned purely with the civil expression of supposedly wrong ideas and opinions from 3 to 5 years ago. So when people ask me, was this cancel culture? Well, to me, it sure feels like it. I also noticed that some people said, oh, no, 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 it's not cancel culture at all. This is just consequences for your past actions or some such thing. But even in that case, as ominous as consequences sounds to me, wouldn't that be predicated on accurate reporting? Which brings me to the next point. So I don't know, when I was in school, there used to be something called Journalism 101, where you needed to be a responsible journalist. So on the responsible side of things, you would expect the articles to be fact checked, or if there were issues, to be specific accusations and some supporting evidence, and that they might provide counterpoints to those accusations or evidence. However, if these were indeed propaganda pieces, well, then the narrative would be more important than the facts. There wouldn't be any accusations. Instead, there'd just be vague labels, kind of smearing of what I am supposed to be all about, with no supporting evidence, I might add, and that they would be very one-sided. This is how these articles look to me. And I also think it may be worthwhile to take a look at the propaganda techniques that I listed there on Wikipedia. In any case, that's how it felt to me, that this was more propaganda than anything responsible for these reasons. My defense in response is that I thought that people should just simply look closer at what was being said. For example, there are all these articles that I'm sure you all noticed that refer to me as a lead designer or the lead designer, as though I was heading up the entire project. Of course, we all know that's not true. I've actually been a senior producer since 2019 when they asked me to take on that role. I was hired originally as a lead designer in 2018, senior producer since 2019. That's very public knowledge. That's easy to get a hold of. That's a fact check that takes, one look at my LinkedIn or a LinkedIn page, or maybe one call to WB. Then there are all these defamatory labels, that I'm alt-right or anti-feminist or misogynist, racist, bigot, all these kind of broad smearing labels that are hard to get a handle on exactly what they mean. In my opinion, or my estimation, I'm nowhere near being alt-right. I have no white supremacist tendencies. I don't consider myself anti-feminist in the least. Much to the contrary, I actually think I'm very pro-feminist, just for a certain type of feminism. That would be more of that equity feminism that looks to equate men and women so that we have equal opportunities, and so that we act more like partners with one another. That's as opposed to kind of this more Andrea Dworkin approach that seems to have seeped into things where men are bad and they need to be, kill all men sort of hashtag approach. Yeah, that sort of feminism I do not get on board with. Furthermore, on the anti-feminist accusation, I should point out that at several points in my videos, I recommended feminists who I thought were doing a much better job than, say, Feminist Frequency was. So I don't think that makes me anti-feminist, but maybe it makes me a cafeteria feminist. And then lastly, there are the videos themselves. And in the articles, they kind of just allude to them and try and suggest what might be in them. But as far as I can tell, they didn't watch any of them. My defense of John Lasseter is certainly not a defense of sexual harassment in any way. Quite the contrary. It's like, I think he did some wrong things, but now he's willing to make amends. Let's give this guy a chance and try to forgive him. So it's a defense of forgiveness. For some reason, people seem concerned about my comments on saving The Last Jedi. But as you all know, I had done 4 playsets prior on Disney Infinity, and the 5th was supposed to be The Last Jedi. And so I was very interested in the script, and that particular video isn't at all some attack on Johnson or the movie itself. It's more just like, how would I have tweaked the script to make it more acceptable to fans? I do have various critiques of feminist frequency. I don't really want to get into all of this, only to point out that the videos themselves refute the accusations. And then on the other hand, there's a whole bunch of videos that they never even mention that I think would serve to kind of exculpate me from the defamatory labels. The Joy of Wrong is one. The Games Lead the Way video. That's the one where I spoke about how character creation can help to address issues of diversity inclusion in games in a very kind of non-confrontational, easy way to get into. There's the video on Shapiro's excluded middle. Anybody who thinks I'm far right, well, in that video, I'm criticizing Mr. Shapiro's positions on abortion and on transgender issues and on religious morality. And then there's all these other videos I had on pantheism, religion, net neutrality, Black Mirror. I did that underground press from Venezuela on game development, the rise of AI. Heck, I've even got a video on poetry. The videos themselves seem to undercut what the articles were trying to say about me. At this point, I think it's a good time to mention that while I was going through all this, I took a look at YouTube to see what the sentiment was out there. And I recognized that it was pretty positive. And so I wanted to note that I really appreciated the support of both the big and the small channels. And one of the things that I believe is that while big channels are really great for boosting the signal, if you want to know how people really feel about things, pay attention to the small channels, because they're not doing it for the money. They're doing it for the passion because of what they believe in. I also appreciated the informed criticism, because some people did start watching the videos and then started taking them apart. And I'm like, good, engage with my videos, please. I don't mind being criticized. In fact, as I say in The Joy of Wrong, to recognize that you are wrong is to have learned something. And the only way that you can know that you are wrong is to engage with opposing ideas. So, now that I think you have an idea of how bad I think this journalism was, what would a responsible press do? What would their response be? Well, I think they would issue corrections, maybe retractions, maybe even apologies. However, if the press is more inclined towards propaganda, I suspect they would double down. Maybe they would start blaming me or others for what they've done. They may misdirect or malign both myself or those who have supported me. So I think it'll be interesting to see what happens next. So these are llamas. So a llama is a domesticated South American camelid, and it's widely used as a meat and pack animal by Andean cultures since the pre-Columbian era. Now, llamas are very social animals and live with others as a herd. Their wool is very soft and lanolin-free. So what is it that I do believe? Well, right before all these articles dropped, I was celebrating on Twitter the landing of the Perseverance robot on Mars. And I thought that was fantastic. In fact, I didn't see that as an accomplishment of any one group or demographic. It's not white men who are doing this. No. I saw it as something that the entire species took part in. And that's very much how I view the world. I think that it's time for us to grow up and get past being so tribal over such petty things as our demographics, whether we're white or black, male or female, gay, straight, trans, it doesn't matter. In my view, we should be trying to minimize our tribalism instead of building walls around ourselves based on such shallow demographics. We should be building bridges to one another. And then I recognize, in my view, that the smallest minority, the minority most worthy of protection, is the individual. And that's how I tend to see the world altogether. I see it like we're all notes in the grand symphony of humanity. Everybody has a part to play. It doesn't matter what your background is, you add to the richness of that symphony. And I think we can learn from one another and learn from each other's lived experiences while still celebrating that we are all of the same species. So that's my opinion on that. Which in turn leads to the J.K. Rowling conundrum. As I think many of you know, I am a strong trans rights supporter. I am hoping to build bridges of understanding between the different communities. But what about what J.K. Rowling has to say? Well, my thought is first, you should read her statement very carefully. I would advise that you don't let others do your thinking for you. Now, when I read it, I see that there are points where I disagree and points where I can see her reasoning. So when I read J.K. Rowling's position, I see that she's expressing herself in a calm and reasonable manner. And she even provides explanations for why she thinks the way that she does. She's worthy of conversation, not cancellation. I see a potential bridge there. And I also see, because she took the time to write this, where I would initiate that conversation. So I appreciate what she's done there as well. All right, so finally, what's next for me? For those of you who may be curious. First of all, again, I've already done the math on this back when I thought I was retiring last August, and I'm happy to say I'm ahead of where I thought I would be. So I now consider myself to be comfortably retired. I don't need to work. I don't need to go back to the industry or anything else. I would really like to get into independent development, but again, family must come first. So this may be years away before I can really dig into that. However, as I've thought about things, I think that in between stuff, I should be able to work on the next book in my series. Uh, for the dozen or so of you who have read it, you already know that it's self-edited and self-published. It's, again, kind of like my YouTube videos, more like a hobby than a career. So my plan now is that I'm going to write the next in the series. Oh, but for those of you who have read the book, you've seen the second attempt at a cover. The first one that I had done, well, it was just too busy, but I still kind of like the illustration. So this is it. Here on the left, you've got Thalcom, the escort of the priestess Najin. She's singing a song of protection to keep this horde of undead at bay. Over here, this is Jathrin. She's the main protagonist of the story, who seems to have a certain knack for necromancy, which you could see might be a problem. And then here is Tydelis, who is her on and again, off again boyfriend. Anyway, this is a scene from chapter 5. And if you're interested as to how they got into this predicament, well, you can pick up the book and take a look. The book is an epic fantasy. It's got emphasis on music, on magic, religion, quite a lot of religion actually, and of course, necromancy. As long as I'm going to be on the next book, I thought, I know when you guys are about ready to ship, so how about we race on this? I think I can have my book done, finished, and self-published at least before you guys get the game out. Oh, and lastly, I may decide to return to making some more videos, kind of based on how this one is received. All right, so just to wrap this all up, first of all, I want to say, please don't be discouraged or demoralized by my leaving in any way, or about any of these articles that are coming out about the game or that may continue to come out about the game. I think there's a certain aspect of our press that is motivated to try and harm the game. I also want to say that I genuinely and sincerely believe that Avalanche is the right studio to be making this game. When I've talked to other people about this, there's a few things that I think are worth pointing out. First of all, we're the same studio that did Infinity. Even though that was aimed at a younger demographic, that was a lot of work, and we touched a whole lot of intellectual properties. So I say that I think it's quite fair to say that Avalanche might be the best in the world at working with intellectual property and at respecting it, really understanding it. We have all these other intellectual properties that we've dealt with. I also believe in our player-centric design team. They're really focused on just good gameplay and what's right for the player without trying to push any other agendas into the game. I believe that we have world-class talent in the studio, and that includes art, and coding, and writers, and sound effects, and music, and animators, amazing character artists, fantastic concept art. We have a very talented team. And then in the places where we might be a bit deficient, well, we've been augmented by some partnerships, and we have great institutional knowledge that we can get and consult with. I keep saying we. I guess I'm no longer part of the project, but I would like to say it's exactly as I said in my resignation letter. I believe in the project, and I believe in the team, and I believe that you guys are making something truly magical, and I'm proud to have been a part of it. And so with that in mind, game on, my friends.